My name is David Margolin, and this is another edition of the Forecast Contest. Today's um, October 8th. The Forecast Contest verification period is for the 23rd to 27th, and I'm going to give you a walkthrough of my forecast process. As always, it's probably worth what you paid for it. All right, so um, typically I start with attribution. I try to look back and see how things have verified. So I'm going to do that here quickly. And the most recent verification period is, yeah, the forecast from September 17th, verifying for October 6th, or October 2nd to October 6th. And sort of the long story short here, as I sort this, is you can see that the verification, and this is in CDDs, verification came in above all expectations, at least through the contest. And this has been a theme that now we've seen for several weeks in a row, where I think it's 4 weeks in a row where the verification has come in outside of the envelope of forecasts. So clearly, the forecasts have been overachieving on the warm end. Um, in particular, we've seen a lot of heat, anomalous heat in the southeast United States. So um, if I had more time, one of the things I'd try to dig into a little bit is maybe trying to understand a little bit more about the causality, the what produced the pattern, if it's likely to stay. But the short version of that is I have looked at how the, the, the sort of short range period is coming forward. And thanks to our friends at Maxar, I can look at the forecast here over the next 10, 50 days. And what you're looking at here is now HDDs. But the point I want to make here is that it does look like we're finally seeing a break in that anomalous record sort of heat. So even if we look at the CDDs here, which I now have the CDDs up, and we compare it to the 10-year normal, you can see by these color shadings here, um, this is the Maxar forecast. Most of the forecasts are near normal, even slightly below normal. So the bottom line is um, that significant heat event that caused record warmth in September seems to be breaking, at least for the time being. So the idea of using, say, persistence or something like that into the 16 to 20 would not seem like, in particular, would not seem like a good idea for this situation. All right, so that's just a quick sort of attribution. Again, if you had more time, I think it's always good to better understand maybe what caused uh, the big pattern there in September and what's changing it. Um, a lot of times it's not easy, and a lot of times you can spend hours on that, days or even weeks, and not fully understand the cause of things. All right. So then, in terms of my 1620 and my weighting scheme, my formula, you can find it here on the analysis page. Um, and this is a process I go through each week. Um, I like to have a repeatable process because I think that's the best way you learn. If you have a repeatable process, you can see how things are working and tweak them and update them and learn from them. If you don't have a repeatable process, it's really easy to bias yourself and not really fully understand why you did well or why you didn't do well. But again, the quick version of this, and folks are welcome to look at this. I include inputs such as the 30-year normal, the 10-year normal, ECMWS, CFS, the radiant forecast, 30-year trend. This is a little input that I came up with, the 10 hottest years. So it's a mean of the 10 hottest years for this period. And then I have an equal distribution or equal mean of the 30-year normal EC and CFS, and then my user-defined weighting. My user-defined weighting's up here, and it evolves, constantly. This is what it is for today, and as I put into my forecast contest strategy statement, this has sort of just been an evolution from the summer, and I've tweaked it a little bit now as we're getting into the fall. And what I expect to continue to do, all things being equal, is to take more of the weighting out of like the 10-year normal and like the top 10 hottest, and put more of it into the 30-year normal. And the reason why I expect to do that, again, all things being equal, is because it's my view, based on research that I've seen and my own experience, that the summer in the summer, the climate change has had a much bigger influence on the U.S. pattern than in the winter. In the winter, I think we're still closer to the 30-year normal, whereas in the summer, the 10-year normal or even something hotter than that tends to be a better forecast input. So again, that's my views is based on some objective and subjective information there. So I certainly recommend researching that more. So you can see my final number here is came out to be 52.5 and with a sigma value of 15.4 based on my user weightings. The only other things I want to add here, and we can see this, I'll go to the forecast contest now, the actual UI, and this should be for today, it is, yep. And down below is a little bit more about my strategy statement. Up top here is my formula statement, which we just looked at. I did look at things like the MJO and some other sort of weather variables. And the long story short there was I just could not make a conclusive, I didn't see a significant signal, let's say, away from the data points that I've already incorporated into my forecast. I'm always sensitive to double counting. I'm always sensitive to just throwing things in that could bias my forecasts, like, hey, it's MJO's in phase 2, so I should go colder or warmer. Well, how do I know that the ECMWF or CFS doesn't already incorporate some of that? Or how do I know that it actually improves my forecast? So I try to be really almost cynical about some of those things. Again, you might argue too cynical as opposed to skeptical. But the bottom line is I didn't bias or change my forecast based on the MJO, although obviously I did look at it. The other thing that I looked at was the cold pool across parts of Canada. You can see it here. That weighed on my mind because somewhat, at least subjectively speaking, experientially speaking, I think sometimes the models kind of underestimate that. In particular, maybe the ECMWF, which tends to be a little bit of a warmer model. That being said, when I actually looked at my numbers and compared my forecast here, let's see, this is the wrong date, sorry. When I compare my forecast to the EC, I'm input 1, so I'm 52.5 here, and the EC is 46.7. I felt pretty comfortable too. It's not like my forecast is as warm as the EC or something like that. What else? I think that's mostly kind of it. So again, I had my sort of repeatable process, but I also allow for potentially sort of some fudge factors with the MJO, snow cover, cold temperature anomalies, things like that. Or sometimes if I see maybe a pattern that looks persistent, but I didn't see any of those factors at this point. So the bottom line was I kept my sort of the weightings, and I didn't really tweak them for today's forecast. All right, I think that's it. Thank you for listening in, and we'll do it again next week.